Could you please state your full name?
My name is Ray Cardinale.
Today is May 1st, 2009. My name is Julia Madora. We're at Perry Junior High. What branch did you serve in?
I served in the U.S. Navy. I
What-
went in when I was 17 years of age.
What was your rank?
I'm sorry.
What was your rank? What was your highest rank?
Gunner's mate 3rd class.
How did you join the Navy? Were you enlisted or were you drafted?
No, I volunteered. In fact, I wanted to quit high school, which was in 1943. Everybody was gung-ho. I wanted to quit high school to go in the Navy, and my mother said, you have to finish high school, then you can join the Navy. So I finished, years ago they used to call it PG. I finished in January instead of June. So I finished high school January 24th. I was in the Navy February 4th. Everybody wanted to join. So that's what it was. It's different than today. So I joined February 4th, and they sent me to Sampson Naval Base, which was up in Sampson, New York. So I don't know if I answered your question, Julie.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What theater were you in?
What?
What theater were you in?
Pacific Theater.
Where were you stationed? Where
Well,
did you go?
Well, at first we went to Sampson Naval Base, so I spent 2 months there. Then they sent me to Gunner's Mate School, which was at Newport, Rhode Island. Then I picked up my ship in June of 1944, and I was aboard that ship until May of 1946, was just 2 years. And I was on there when they commissioned it, and then I was on there when they decommissioned it. And they took that ship out years later and just sunk it. Used it for target practice.
Wow.
That's it. Because it was probably too expensive to keep. Am I speaking loud enough, Karen?
Yeah, you're great.
Okay.
You're great.
But in that period of time, you saw how many miles we put on. 2 years, we put on 72,000 miles. That was our cruise.
Wow.
It's a nice cruise.
Nice cruise.
What did you think when Pearl Harbor was bombed?
Well, at that time, I was only 15 years of age. And we just couldn't wait to get into the service. It's a little different than today at the Iraq War. We were attacked, and everybody wanted to get even. So, but I think I was terrible. It was terrible. I couldn't wait to get into service.
Did you ever meet anyone that really meant something to you that you spent a lot of time with on the ship?
I was very close with I was only 17, and I became very good friends with a gentleman called Vinnie Dono, who was about 22 years old. It may sound young yet, but there was a difference of 5 years, and he kind of took me in hand. And he became a very close friend of mine.
What is your opinion about the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima?
I think personally that it was a good thing and it was a bad thing. It was good because it saved us going into Japan and probably losing, they anticipated losing probably, whatever, hundreds of thousands of men just in that invasion. I don't know whether you realize it or not, but there were 11 million men under arms during World War II. And I forgot how many, I think we lost something like 400,000. So it saved a lot of our people, but it killed a lot of theirs. I forgot. I think they lost over 100,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
So, but from our point of view, I think it was the best thing to do. I think he did the right thing.
Did you see anything that really moved you?
In what respect, Julie?
Did you see anything that you just made yourself say, wow, this is amazing or horrible, or?
I think we all saw a lot of that, Julie. I think that the one thing that stands in my mind is the floating bodies that come out from the islands. They would just, after they're in the water, they lose their hair and they blow up, and I think that's the one thing that stayed with me the most. It's not a very nice sight to see.
Were you in any invasions?
A few. I was in Leyte, invasion of Leyte in the Philippines, the invasion of Brunei Bay in Borneo, the invasion of Legazpi, which is in the Philippines, the invasion of Lingayen Gulf, which is also up in the Philippines. Most of our time was in the Philippines.
What was your job on those invasions?
I was a gunner. I was a gunner's mate on a 5-inch 38 gun.
Why don't you describe all that again, like what we were talking about earlier, about, you know, how big the artillery was and the magazines down below, and...
My gun station was a 5-inch 38 turret. They used to store the 5-inch 38s, which weighed about 53 pounds, down in the handling room at the bottom of the ship. They'd have two guys handling the projectile and bringing them up. There was a guy picking them up on the deck. He would hand them to another guy who was in the turret. There'd be one guy aiming, one guy loading, and after they fired the projectile, there'd be a guy catching the hot projectile. He had to wear asbestos gloves like this because they're hot. They turn red, and he'd throw them over the side to get them off the ship. And that was a continuous. I forgot how many we did for a minute, but I can't remember just exactly how many. But it was a continuous thing. If you can picture it, one guy loading, one guy shipping it, everything is moving fast because they're trying to get off as many projectiles as possible.
How far did those go then?
Those would fire probably 8 to 10 miles.
Wow. Okay.
Imagine that.
Mm.
And what would happen, Julie, is when they'd go into an invasion, I don't know whether you're interested or not, but they'd line up the smaller ships first. They'd have like LCI, landing craft and LCIs. Then they'd have ships like ours, destroyer escort. Then they'd have cruisers, and then they'd have battleships. And each one is firing. And the battleships could fire almost 17 miles. But when their projectiles would go over your head, they were 2,000 pounds. Each projectile was 2,000 pounds. And that's like, if you can picture a Volkswagen going through the air like that, you know. And each one of us would hear what's going over our head. So, I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but you know, battleships, cruisers, they would all stay in line. And each one will be firing over the other.
What was your best memory?
My best memory?
Yeah.
Well, when I look back, forgetting all the bad parts of it, but I got a great education. I got to see the world. You saw some of the places we went to. I would never have seen any of that or been part of it. So it was really a great experience for all of us. It really was.
Where were you on VJ Day?
VJ Day, we were in the Philippine Islands. I think I was in Subic Bay, which is just outside of Subic City. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they have Manila, then they have Corregidor, they have Bataan, and then they would have Subic Bay. And we were in Subic Bay because we would go into Manila Bay. See, we were the first warship to go into Manila Bay from the time the Japanese took it. That's the honor that we had. I told you that we went in with the minesweepers.
Yeah.
They mined all of Manila Bay. So we would go in, and we would be the warship, and then the minesweepers would be right behind us, cutting the mines with paravanes. They used to have paravanes, and then we go in and we'd blow up the mines, and that's where they cleared the bay. And we used to see the Japanese floating out on pieces of wood, whaleboats, and what have you. In fact, there's one item in there, I'll let you read it, where there was 24 nurses and Japanese in this little whaleboat, and we went to pick them up as prisoners, and what they did is they threw hand grenades on the deck and killed quite a few sailors. And we just killed them all.
So these were all Japanese invaded islands
Yes.
that you were going through.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So they were islands that after Pearl Harbor, they had inhabited.
They had inhabited.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right.
That's
And then
In
you,
fact, that's what they called island hopping.
Right.
They went from Guadalcanal, I forgot, to Saipan, and then they ended up in New Guinea, and then from New Guinea, if you look at that map, you'll see just the way they went across all the islands, the Carolines, the Solomons. Then they start going up to the Halmahera Islands and up to Leyte. They started with Leyte. That's where General MacArthur returned. When we said, I
oh
will
yeah.
return,
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the invasions we were in. Then from Leyte, they hedge hopped to Lingayen and Brunei Bay and all around like that. But they took the islands one by one. Negro, I can't remember all the islands. Philippines has a great number of islands.
Oh, there's tons of islands that
Tons
you
of
had to have hit, each different one. So you just did the shelling from the ships, and then the Marines sent
The Marines, right.
on,
They'd
on
have the
foot.
battle wagon go in, and they would soften up the island, so to speak. Our job, our biggest job was to escort these squadrons. If we escorted a ship, our ship was only 260 guys. We'd escort a ship like the battle wagons, like Al Cercelli was on, and we'd be on the side of them, and if they got a sub attack, we'd have to keep going round and round that ship, and if there was a torpedo, we'd have to take the torpedo.
Wow.
So,
Okay. So,
and you can understand that,
yeah.
because we'd lose 200 men, they would lose 5,000.
So after you took over an island, then what would happen? The Marines would set up camp there?
Or the Marines would take over the island that they'd inhabit, and then one by one they'd get rid of whatever the snipers and what have you they had
And then you, as the Navy, the ships, would move on to the next islands.
to other islands.
Okay.
Right? Or wherever there was another invasion, or wherever there was another convoy going. Our biggest job was to escort the convoys.
Okay.
If you can picture what a convoy is, you would have well, you've seen them in the movies. They'd have battle wagons, cruisers, and what have you. Then they would have ships like ours, the destroyer escorts and destroyers, on the side of them, going up and down, trying to pick up subs, because
Wow.
they were worried about submarines.
Okay.
And if they got a sub attack, then we'd set up a smoke screen and go around and around these ships, and if they saw a torpedo or something, it would be the job of our ship to take that torpedo.
Wow. Okay. It's a lot of work.
In fact, it's funny, but they called us the Lucky Day. You'll see it in here. And the reason for that is we had some guy was sitting on one of these little stanchions where they tied a rope. You've seen them. And he saw 3 torpedoes go right under our ship. So talk about the luck of the Irish. It just went right under our ship.
Wow.
3 in a row. Boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
And we've had dive bombers come at us, and you've heard of kamikazes, and we were just lucky. We had kamikazes dive at us and miss.
So your ship never
Never
was
got hit.
never got hit.
Never got hit.
Wow.
But we had bombs dropped near us, torpedoes dropped under us, dive bombers come at us, and we were just lucky.
Wow. Wow. Okay, go ahead, honey.
How did you keep in touch with those at home?
How did we? They used to have what they called, I'm thinking of emails. There were special letters that you had to write. They would reduce them to size. I don't even have one. And what would happen, they would have to go through screening areas. They'd have to read all the letters. First of all, you couldn't send any information out. I forgot what they called it. It eludes me now, but you couldn't send letters directly home. Each one of the letters was read by somebody. because they never wanted anybody to know where we were. Not only we, where any of the ships were. So, in fact, we used to send out this here, right here, all in a day. Every once in a while, this would come out, and it would give a little recap of, in fact, you read right up here, it says, this will give you an idea of what we've been doing in the last year. And we'd send this, they'd give us this and we send this out. I just have to keep it. It gives a little brief description of what we did in the few months that we were there.
We'll have to take a copy of that. So you
It's
can
called
see.
All in the Day, and because the name of our ship was the Day, see?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
And Julie, I don't know what you're interested in, but these are some pictures they took of the ships when they're out to sea, and it gives you an idea of how the water is hitting us, and the waves that you go through. You can't even see the ships.
So this is when a torpedo or some or
No,
a
this is just as when you're caught in a storm.
wow. How high did the waves get?
They would they would come over the mast, and the mast is at least 30 feet high.
Wow.
In fact, there's an article you should read in here, and it's in the typhoon that we were in. I happened to see this article in the paper, in one of the destroyer escort papers, so I cut it out, and I wrote on there, I was there. And that's where one of our ships, the Pittsburgh, which is a cruiser, lost 92 feet of its bow. The bow broke right off. Yeah.
During a storm.
During the typhoon. They had, I forgot how many ships that rolled over, and this cruiser, which is huge, lost 92 feet of its sail. I forgot how many hundreds of men that died from that.
Wow.
Yeah. And one other thing you might be interested in, Shirley, I know they sent us this. When you get them and look at it, that's the ships that were lost in the war.
Oh,
Wow, it's a lot.
Thousands of them.
yeah.
Yeah. My goodness.
It breaks it down by battleships, and cruisers, and were torpedoed and sunk, and how many people. That was a Navy.
And all starting with Arizona.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
So
Well, we'll take pictures of this stuff and
I didn't know what to bring. but
no, this is awesome.
thought
All
it'd
these,
be interesting.
yeah, this is great. What we'll do is we can either film it or, take pictures or something.
What was the first thing you did when you got home?
The first thing I did when see, we came back through Manila. We stayed 2 weeks at not Manila, Hawaii. We stayed 2 weeks in Hawaii. It was Christmas of '45 and New Year's of '46. Then we came into San Francisco. We crossed underneath the San Francisco Bridge. The first thing we did is when we got off that ship was kiss the ground.
How long had you been at sea at that point?
I had been at sea from, I think it was 18 months.
Wow.
But we came in, and the first thing we did was melt down and kiss the ground.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say on your role in such an important event in American history?
About what, did you?
Do you have anything else you'd like to mention about your role in American history?
Our role in American history
Yeah.
was a privilege. It really was. And I thank God for us being here. We were lucky. You can see from the ships what's happened.
Now you
I
going in?
apologize for being so emotional.
No,
just,
it's an emotional time. I mean,
tough,
we're
just
privileged,
tough to talk about it.
and I don't know if everybody realizes how fortunate we are to have had people like you fight for what we have here. I think that's the emotional, part. I wanted to know, going back, how you went into the Navy. Like, why Navy? Like, instead of
That's interesting because I was good friends with three guys, me, Sam Samari, and Paul Marfone. So the three of us finished school and we decided to go join the Marines. my mother really signed for me to join the U.S. Marines. And we went down to the post office to take our physical, and my two friends both got in the Marines. And I got rejected because of my eyes, because I didn't have 20/20 vision. So I just walked right across the aisle, and I joined the Navy. And they ask you, what would you like to go into? And I had chosen aviation machinist mate after in the Navy, because I had taken auto mechanics in high school. They rejected me in the Marines for my eyes, not getting in the Marines, and they sent me to gunner's mate school. that just tells you what the hell the Navy does. So I became a gunner.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it wasn't my choice.
Yeah.
They just send you wherever they want you to go, and that was it.
Now, when you weren't involved in an invasion and you're out at sea, what were your daily duties then? Like, what were you responsible
we
for?
were escorting. Remember, I told you we would escort convoys.
Right.
Okay, and my duties were to keep my guns clean all the time.
Okay.
I had the chief gunner's mate come along once, and at that time I had a 40 millimeter, and he'd come along and go like this on the gun, and found some dust there, and he said, I'll never forget, he said to me, if I come by again and I find that on that gun, I'll let you clean the whole thing with a toothbrush. So consequently, I kept it clean.
And they probably would have let you
They
clean it
would.
with a toothbrush, right?
Yeah. Well, we were privileged. See, being a gunner's mate, it's kind of one of the select. You know, if you're in the O division, which we were in, either boatswain mate, gunner's mate, or torpedo man, it's a lot different. You never get the deck duties and the mess duties and everything else, because they're concerned with keeping our guns clean.
Okay.
So I don't want to call us the privileged few, but we were fortunate, more fortunate than the others. I never had mess duty. I never had to clean decks.
Okay.
I had to clean guns.
So that was primarily what you did then?
That was my primary function.
Okay.
Yes.
And you would do that as you were escorting ships
Oh,
and
sure.
Okay. And then my other thing too is just like about daily life. Was there a time that they, I don't know if it's revelry, I want to say, that you had to be up at,
Oh yeah.
like,
They
and
would-
then
they would-
lights out at a certain time, that type of deal?
That's right. They would pipe you. They had a boatswain whistle, and he would get on the speaker system, and he would pipe reveille, and then they would pipe chow, and then they would pipe all lights out at night. I can't even remember what they call it, but they had a special tune with each one. They could blow that boatswain whistle, and whatever he would blow would tell you just exactly what you were going to do.
So you had to learn those signals
So you
then?
learn them signals, yeah. But and then our mess hall, I tell you, when we were in rough water, I used to get sick all the time. And our mess hall was in the bow. And if you can picture 200 guys in a long, hot corridor, because there was no air conditioning or anything, and whether you know it or not, the temperatures down the South Pacific got to 115 and 118. So we used to sleep. In fact, I brought some pictures of what our bunks looked like. Here's what it was. I happened to pick this up out of that's what we slept in.
Oh my goodness. Turn it like that, there.
Oh, okay.
See?
You see it?
So
All
three.
it was a canvas with chains, and I had the top one. I used to have to grab a pipe. They had a pipe when I was young. You'd step up and then swing in, and the floor would be right about here like this, so I'd slide in there. And that's where I stayed for the 2 years I was on that ship.
Wow. So how many men were on your ship then?
260.
Okay.
About 260, and the ship was probably 320 feet long.
Wow. Here, we'll just pause.
She got to work that pretty good, huh?
Uh-huh.
What else can I show you, Julie?
Well, I was just thinking about with VJ Day. So after the surrender papers were signed in the Missouri, that we learned with Alice or Sally, you guys still continued to patrol.
We were still there, absolutely. In fact, there were still destroyers out there, Japanese destroyers. And one of the conditions of the armistice was that they had to weld all their breech blocks on their guns.
To seal them off?
So they couldn't fire them.
Okay.
So I had a picture of a destroyer. We had to board this destroyer. It was a Japanese destroyer. And they had to let us go aboard the ship to check their guns and make sure they had welded all the guns. But there were a lot of ships out there yet. But we stayed out there. It was, I forgot when the armistice was. It was in August of
45.
45. And we were still out. We didn't come back till December of 45. We left the Subic Bay. And I come through San Francisco on January the 9th, 46. I remember the day exactly.
So almost a whole year that you were out there.
Well, it was five months.
Yeah.
From August, September, October, November,
Oh, okay.
December, 5 months out in the Pacific. And then when they come over here, we came back into San Francisco, Mare Island, and they decided to put our ship into mothballs. You read about that. And they had to spread cocoons over all the guns and everything else, and we did that, and I was part of doing that.
And what did that entail then? Like, how did that work?
Well, first of all, they sent us home on a rehabilitation leave. We got 38 days rehab leave after being overseas. And then they sent me all the way back to San Diego, and we had to put all the guns in cocoons. They had special cocoons and heavy grease on all the guns and everything else, as though they were going to store them. But the ship only stayed out in Mare Island 2 or 3 or 4 years, and they decided to take them out and use them for gunnery practice, and they sunk them.
Oh, okay. So like for training.
So they did their job,
Mm-hmm.
and imagine that, them ships lasted 2 years, took them out and sunk them. It
Wow.
was commissioned in June of 44. It was decommissioned in May of 46, 2 years. Then they stayed in mothballs for a few years, and then they decided to take them out and just sink them.
Wow. I know that some of them I've read about, they've used them as man-made reefs.
Yeah, but then the big ships.
Yeah.
The crew, airline,
I know.
aircraft.
Aircraft carriers.
Aircraft carriers, yeah.
So you were in a cruiser.
I was on a destroyer escort.
Okay, destroyer escort. Okay.
So that's a small ship.
Okay.
They had destroyer. They would go up from LCI to a destroyer escort to a destroyer to a light cruiser to a heavy cruiser to a battleship.
That's a lot. That's a lot of ships.
A lot of ships.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, just look through that
Oh
list
yeah.
and see.
I want to take a
see
peek
what
at that.
It's, it's really disturbing when you read that.
Well, when you see the loss of life.
Loss of life. Yeah.
Well, before we start looking at any of the photographs, is there anything else any particular invasion that that stands out more than something else, or any funny story that happened that was amusing?
I can't think of anything that was.
Nothing like no practical jokes that anybody did or anything like. No. What about your crossing from Pollywog to Shellback?
You had to go through this. They call him King Neptune, and he was dressed with a crown on his head, and they put diapers on him. Believe it or not, and he had what would you call it? It's not it's like a fork, but it was a metal fork, but it was electrified, and they would hose us down with the salt water, and then somebody would come along and start jabbing you, and you had to do some nasty things for these guys but that was it. We went through that and we went from Pollywog to Shellbacks.
And then received your certificate.
And then we received that certificate, yeah.
Nice.
And that was crossing both the equator and the international date line.
Okay.
So we did it twice. So,
And was anybody exempt from that, or did everyone on the ship have to go through it?
no, there were a lot of guys aboard ship that had been through it.
Okay.
You know.
So once you've gone through it, you don't have to go through it again.
No, they were the guys that really imposed all the punishment on all the young kids,
Right.
You know, you got a picture, how old are you, honey?
14.
14, okay.
But
you got
fraternities.
Yeah, you got kids in here that are 16, 17. See how young they are? Imagine them going to war. Hard to
Oh,
imagine.
it's very hard to imagine.
Hard to imagine.
Yeah.
But,
But you guys were all gung-ho.
everybody was going to go. If you look at the lines, there were lines and lines and lines of guys volunteering that just wanted to get back to the jobs.
And that was right after Pearl Harbor that everybody
right
did
after
that.
Pearl Harbor, right. That's not happening today.
No.
No. So, because we had a cause. We had a reason, a purpose.
Right.
So,
So you didn't see that sort of gung-ho-ness before Pearl Harbor. I mean, people were thinking about that there was war in Europe and...
but they were
But-
volunteering, Carol, because I think they anticipated that war. You know, there was already a war going on with Great Britain and Germany and everybody
Right.
else, right?
Right.
And everybody knew that we would eventually be involved. But then we got involved the wrong way. You know the way that was
Right.
working. They were over here negotiating, and all the while they were planning to bomb us.
So Pearl Harbor just was kind of the icing on the cake for everybody
Yes,
to start
Right, exactly.
jumping in.
Right.
And how about women? Did you see women volunteering for all sorts of duties right after
Absolutely.
that?
Every place you went, they had waves, which were in the Navy, and wax, which were in the Army. And they did the job, you know, they were a lot of them overseas too. They did the job in the offices that would let the men go out to, you know, to battle in war. There were a lot of them.
Well, they were called waves for the Navy?
Waves,
Okay.
waves.
All right. That's good to know.
And, yeah, did you know that?
No, I did not know that. I knew
Wax.
about the wax, but I didn't know about
Waves
the
and wax.
waves. Wow, neat.
Yeah,
That's great.
they had what do they call them, all the places where the guys would go. I forgot, losing my memory. You know, where they would have, you'd go for liberty and what have you. What's the word I'm trying to think of? I can't even think of it.
I know. I can't think of it either.
I want to say CIO, but that's not it.
Right, it's not, and I keep thinking AWOL, and that's definitely
That's
not
not
it.
it, yeah. We're both on the wrong track.
I'll have to think about that for a second.
Imagine that.
I know, it's when you
You
had
get a mental
you had furlough for a
Yeah,
few
you had
days.
furlough for a few days, and
And I can't think of what it is for. So all right, so let's talk about that for a second. What did you do when you had a few days off? Because they would come into port, wouldn't they? At some places.
they'd give you liberty. They call that liberty.
Okay, and so what would you do
It
then?
wouldn't be a few days. You'd get off in the morning, and not in the morning. You'd have one day or something. Then you'd have to
Okay.
be back on the ship at night. You didn't get furloughs in the Navy.
Okay.
You got liberty, and you were in port maybe 1 or 2 days, and they'd have half the group. They'd have port and starboard. All port would go out, or all starboard would go out. And what'd you do? Hate to tell you.
Go to the bars.
Go to the bar. You'd go out and drink and look for women.
So it was the time. It was obviously a time to just relax. And were you ever in like pretty populated areas? I mean, the places that you would have liberty.
I was when you're overseas. I'll tell you what they did. We'd pull into like a bay, Subic Bay, right? They'd give each guy 3 cans of beer. They used to call it 3.0 beer. They put you in a whaleboat and they put us on the island. And you'll see some pictures in here of us being on the island. And you do nothing. You take pictures, you sit and drink beer and talk, or you play softball, and then you stay there 3 or 4 hours, and whaleboat would come up, pick you up, and bring you back on ship.
So just some time to
But
little R&R.
The only thing with liberty is when we hit a big a city, and that was like when we went to Manila or Subic City. But that was not very often.
Right.
Most of our liberties were the ship was in the bay. They'd have movies at night, okay, right on the fantail, or they'd put us in a whaleboat during the afternoon and bring us on the island and give us 3 cans of beer and pick us up around 6 o'clock, and that was it. That was liberty.
Now, did that happen very often? Would you say like once every 2 weeks, once a month?
Well, it depends. If we were in the bay for a week or something, you'd probably do it once or twice. They'd put us on liberty.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's just putting us on the island with a couple of cans
Right,
of beer.
right, right.
Then if we pulled into a port like, and I'll show you when we pulled into Manila, how all the guys went out in their whites and how they all come back laying on the bottom of the ship, drunk and sick and beat up. So,
Not feeling good.
not feeling good.
No, no. Well, those are some fun. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add that?
Nothing excepting that there were bad times and there were good times. We had a lot of good times aboard ship, you know, and the closeness that you feel with all the guys is unbelievable. You know, you live together, you fight together, you go through so much turmoil together, and you have liberty together, and you become very, very close to everybody. In fact, they have a reunion once a year, and I've been to a few of them, but they spread them all over the country.
For your ship.
For our ship. Yeah.
Nice.
Right now, there's very few people to attend because most of them are gone.
Right.
So,
But that's nice that they do that.
and
You know.
you'll
That,
see, we got some reunions in here.
well, good.
So,
Well, great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, let's look at some of these great memorabilia